Of August. Great to have you with us. Thanks so much for tuning in to the news at 8. The Constitutional Court will hold a special sitting in honour of Justice Edwin Cameron this morning. He is stepping down after 25 years as a judge. Cameron began serving at the Constitutional Court in January 2009. For decades, he's been championing the rights of gay and lesbian people and fighting denialism and discrimination associated with HIV/AIDS. Cameron was one of the first public figures to disclose his HIV status. Let's cross live to SABC reporter Chriselda Lewis. Chriselda, it's going to be, I imagine, a very emotional program today. Talk to us about what we can expect that's going to be happening.
Well, Liana, 25 years as a judge, and of course, since January 2009, he's been serving here at the Constitutional Court, of course, the highest court in the land. And I've had the privilege over the past couple of hours there, Leanne, to speak to former colleagues as well as very close friends. And the two words that really came out quite prominently is the humility with which Justice Edwin Cameron had conducted himself, as well as the diligence with which he did his work. Those were the two words that sincerely came out when I spoke to quite a number of his former colleagues, current colleagues, as well as close friends. And in part of those conversations, to explain to you the extent of his contribution to the judiciary in this country, we understand that he had participated in more than 400 judgments. So the indelible mark that he will leave for the work that he has done in the South African judiciary is certainly something that will be remembered. As you said, Leanne, of course, a special sitting for him here at the Constitutional Court this morning, where he will deliver his final judgment, I understand, in a matter involving the Department of Transport and a company. So certainly as he now hangs his robe, many will be here today to say farewell to Justice Cameron. And of course, you would know that over the years as well, while he was a very active within the judiciary, in terms of human rights as well, that's something that has certainly come across in the conversations that we've had, where you would know that he has championed the rights of gay and lesbian people in South Africa. And this was way before even the drafting of the Constitution. He played a formidable role in ensuring that the rights of gays and lesbians in South Africa, all of that was contained within South Africa's Constitution at the drafting phase. And also, of course, with regard to South Africa's response to treatment pertaining to HIV and AIDS. He was very instrumental in shaping South Africa's response pertaining to that. But of course, as we continue to speak to people who've worked very close with him, Lwando Xaso is one of those people, and she's a former law clerk to Justice Cameron. Lwando, thank you very much for your time this morning. Certainly, many are saying farewell to a great man today who's played a very important role in South Africa. Talk to us a bit about what South Africans don't know about Justice Cameron. You've shared very close moments with him.
You know, it's still unbelievable to me that he's retiring. You know, we have term limits in this country. We know that judges are on the bench for a certain amount of time and then they move on. We've seen other amazing people come and go, but to hear Justice Cameron retiring, it's unbelievable. And you know, the court is richer with him there. You know, him and his, I like to say, 45 caliber mind. I can honestly say he's the smartest person I've ever known. He's my legal hero. He's my favorite writer. But more importantly, he's my favorite human being. And yesterday we had a sitting for him, a lunch for him. He made sure to arrange a lunch to thank the support staff of the court. You know, he invited all the security guards, making sure that they were off duty, all the cleaners. He knows all of them by name. I remember when I was here, he was helping some of the children go through school, you know, get driver's licenses. He is, you know, a human being first. He knows who he is without that robe. And I think in as much as we are celebrating him, I think he's appreciative, but at the same time, he has a bit of distance between himself and what is going on because he understands himself. He's got such self-awareness. And I think for me, that's what I admire about him. His ego is not at play at all. And I think that is a mark of someone who's had a near-death experience. You know, HIV/AIDS almost killed him. And I think for me, when you've gone through something like that, I can imagine you have a clarity of purpose. And his purpose was to do his job well, but to also treat human beings really well. So I'll never forget just watching him interact from the moment he drives into the court, through the boom gate and saying hello to the security guard by name, coming through the scanners, going up the lift, seeing the cleaners and talking to them. And yesterday, the cleaners were celebrating him. They were so happy. I mean, he made sure that they were at the center of the celebration and said, I have my colleagues, my brothers and sisters on the bench who I love so much, but I have to thank you to everybody else who's made my time at this court so meaningful. And those are people that are usually forgotten. Those are the people that are invisible to other people, but not to Justice Cameron. He sees every single human being, and if we could learn that from him, that would make this world a better place. And the other thing that he taught me is do your job well. As you heard, he's very diligent. And, sometimes I talk to Albie Sykes and he's like, Lwando, what's needed right now is for you guys to do your jobs well. You're not dodging bullets and bombs like we used to. It's about each one of you serving and doing your job well.
Very quickly, Lwando, we're running out of time. He was never one to speak out against atrocities. That's what we've come to understand in the multiple interviews that we have done. Talk to us a bit about that and how he spoke out against some of the injustices. Of course, we know he championed the rights of gays and lesbians in South Africa. When it came to access for treatment pertaining to HIV and AIDS, he spoke out. He was not afraid to do so. He was not afraid to challenge power.
He changed the national discourse in this country on HIV/AIDS. He helped to deal with the stigma. He helped to, lessen the stigma of having HIV/AIDS. To me, it blows my mind that in 2019, he's probably still the only public servant who has come out as HIV positive. And we know he's not the only one. And for me, he's a symbol of freedom. Watching him live with this disease, but being free, has enabled other people to also free themselves of stigma and to own who they are. And he's been a champion for his community. He's been a champion any matter of injustice, especially dealing with children. At the forefront. He's never shy to speak his mind, and even in his judgments, he's pretty much, incisive and insightful, and he understands the written word and the power of the written word, but also in person, he's been able to speak out. The way he described having HIV/AIDS made it so relatable, because in Africa he's not the face of HIV/AIDS. This is a straight presenting, very handsome white man who's a judge, and for him to say to young children, I'm also gay, I'm also HIV positive, representation matters. When people see him on that bench, they know that there's a judge who understands how much ARVs cost in this country because he's living with it. So it's very important to have someone like him on the bench.
All right, I can clearly see that he's made really an indelible mark towards you, not just in your career, but as a person as well. Lwando Xaso, thank you very much for your time. A former law clerk to Justice Cameron. At 10 o'clock this morning, a special sitting, as I said there, Leanne, saying final goodbyes to Cameron, who's at this court here at the Constitutional Court since January 2009. He'll deliver his final judgment here this morning, and I understand quite a number of his former colleagues will also be in attendance here. The former Constitutional Court Justice Yvonne Mokgoro, I understand, will be here. I spoke to her yesterday, and I understand the former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke will also be part of the celebration here today. But South Africa bidding farewell, of course, to a giant within the legal fraternity.
Thanks very much, Chriselda Lewis, covering that particular story for us. Let's quickly